everybody, welcome back to the channel today. My name is Carly, and today we're going to be kind of switching things up a little bit over here on Board Game Buzz. A couple of months ago, I actually received an email from somebody, and I'm not going to lie, when I first saw it, I honestly thought it was a joke. There's no way that this person actually knows who I am and actually wants to talk with me about something. But the more I looked at it, I was like, no, you know what? Like, I actually think this is right. I think this is who I actually think it is. And then they replied back, and that's when it kind of like fully set in at that point that like I was actually talking to Andrew Bosley. So let me get you caught up to speed really quick here. A couple of months ago, Andrew Bosley reached out asking kind of my opinions and if I would be willing to kind of help create some content for him for something that wasn't actually a board game, but more of like a passion project for him. I was already completely prepared to say yes to whatever Andrew wanted. When Andrew Bosley asks you something, just say yes. No matter what it is, just say yes. But after he started explaining what he was kind of working on and what he was kind of the secret project that he was working on, I actually was like super intrigued. I know I've kind of kept you hanging for a little bit, but I kind of wanted just to lay the groundwork to kind of let you in on this little secret project that Andrew Bosley has been working on for a while. And that project is the Smoking Bones Travel Guide. Before we jump into this video too much, I do want to make it clear that the Smoking Bones Travel Guides is currently live over on Kickstarter. So I'll make sure to have all of the information in the description below, but make sure you head over to their page, kind of check out everything for this book and if it would be a good fit for you. So you might be asking yourself, well, what is the Smoking Bones? The Smoking Bones is a fictional world and setting for a series of illustrated novels published by Andrew Bosley and Wits Studios. There is also an upcoming series of board games which will be published by Stonemaier Games. The Smoking Bones centers on the adventures of Captain Red Jones and his mission to discover, promote, and preserve the magical places of the world. Sadly, those magical places called wonders are disappearing from the landscape. Red is determined to find out why and restore the Northernlands to their magical glory. Join the captain and his crew on a grand tour and prepare yourself for the adventure of a lifetime. After initially talking with Andrew about this and having him explain all of that to me, I was just so intrigued. I really wanted to get my hands on it and be able to kind of see this world that Andrew created. It's interesting because artists are always like commissioned to bring to life other people's worlds. But if Andrew could create his own world and his own universe, like what would that look like? What would be in it? How could he bring a world to life? And so I waited anxiously for this to arrive in the mail, and it arrived, and I literally read it in one sitting. I just sat down and I became fully immersed in this world. It was so interesting to create like a travel guide version of like a world, because as it quite literally reads like a travel guide. You go through and it's like, do you want to do this excursion or this adventure, and these are things that you can experience. As I was going through and reading and immersing myself in this world, I found myself just kept kind of coming up with questions that I wanted to ask Andrew. And so I thought to myself, you know what, why don't we just do a Q&A with Andrew, and we could kind of have him on the channel for a little bit, kind of chatting about this world and how he created it. And so I quickly typed up an email, sent it off to him, hoping that that would be something that he would be interested in, because I would really love to hear him talk about this book. And thankfully, Andrew was so down with the idea of doing like a little Q&A on his book. And so that is what this video is today, is a Q&A with Andrew Bosley, chatting about his new book series, and kind of how he came up with the idea, and a bunch of other kind of small questions I had while I was reading this book. I know I've been chatting your ear off already in this video, but let's go ahead and kind of jump into our Q&A with Andrew Bosley.
Hi Carly, thanks so much for having me on the channel. I've been a big fan for a long time, and so it's exciting to talk to you about the Smoking Bones.
We are so excited to have you on the channel, Andrew, and the first question that I have for you today is, what is the story behind the Smoking Bones, and how did you come up with the idea?
Well, I've been working on the Smoking Bones travel company for about 10 years. I had been thinking about different projects I might work on for myself for a while. And I think it all started with finding a travel guide that someone had made called 1,000 places to visit before you die. I don't know if that's the true name of it, but I saw this, and it basically kind of recorded all these different locations that you could go to if you're in Spain or if you're in Finland. And I thought that was just a really interesting idea, and I thought, how cool would it be to come up with a travel guide of magical places. So ultimately 1,000 magical places to visit before you die. That was the start of the Smoking Bones Travel Company. Eventually it evolved into more than just these travel guides. It included stories and ultimately a much bigger thing. But I've been working on that for almost 10 years now.
That's something that for me I feel like is completely unique. I don't think I've ever read like a fantasy book that literally reads as a travel guide. It really brings the world to life. And I remember like at the end of the travel guide, I was like, okay, what adventure like am I gonna go on? Like if I could choose one of these adventures, what one would appeal the most to me? The next question that I had is, why is the travel company called the Smoking Bones Travel Company?
That's a very good question. I haven't actually shared this with many people. So the Smoking Bones Travel Company, the Smoking Bones world, as I'm telling it in these series of books, tells the story of Red Jones and his travel company. A few hundred years before the times in these books, there was a really large war that enveloped all of the Northlands, and it was instigated by a kingdom called the Withermark. They were trying to subjugate all the other kingdoms in the area, and this big conflict that lasted 100 years went on. Terrible magical battle, magical conflict. Near the end of this war, one of Red Jones's ancestors, who was a commander with the Withermark Kingdom, he led a fleet of airships called the Smoking Bones, and this unit, this fleet of ships, actually turns on the Withermark, turns on their own kingdom, and betrays them, seeing that they're on the wrong side of this battle, and them turning on their own kingdom turns the tide in the war itself, and ultimately leads to the victory of the other kingdoms. So Red Jones, who is he is a ancestor of the Withermark, though with a conflicted, sense of history and heritage, has a lot of respect for his ancestor who did this, and so he names his travel company the Smoking Bones Travel Company, as in remembrance of his ancestor and what he did.
That really shows the amount of depth that is involved in this world, this kind of magical realm that Andrew has been building for the past 10 years. To have a background story like that, and to be able to that's set way before the actual events that are within kind of this book series. So I love that how the Smoking Bones, that name, the Smoking Bones Travel Company, is a callback to their ancestry, right? Kind of the ancestor, or the history around this world. The next question that I had was, what inspired Andrew to create this world?
The earliest beginnings of the Smoking Bones world started when I was living in North Carolina. I was working for a video game company, and I was commuting to work every day, and as I was driving around Raleigh, North Carolina, I would see these abandoned barns all over the place. And it's just part of the landscape in North Carolina, in rural North Carolina. And I remember seeing these things, and I just remember these buildings had to have a story, but I'm just seeing them in this more neglected state. And at one point I remember noticing that one of these barns disappeared. Obviously the owner of the property at some point was like, I don't need this barn anymore. But one day it was there, and then at least the next time that I noticed going by, on my commute, I noticed that this building was gone. So this sparked this idea that, here is this interesting building, and to me, I mean, I thought these buildings were very beautiful too, in a very humble way. To see this thing with such history and a story behind it disappear suddenly, and there was something that I was like, that's kind of sad. And so, combined with this idea of these magical locations, the story evolved into being one where these magical places are actually disappearing. The core of the story of The Smoking Bones is Red Jones trying to discover, one, why these are disappearing, and what he can do to fix it.
I think all of us can relate to that a little bit, especially like in our world of living in a world and having stuff slowly dying off or slowly disappearing. Kind of wanted to point something out here in the Glittering Glendebrier. I hope I pronounced that right. But I just love the little touches that they added, or that Andrew added to this book. But right here it says, the valley is under strict ecological protection. Deliberate littering or otherwise risking harm to the valley or its inhabitants will result in both immediate termination of your tour, along with being banned from future tours, as well as a heavy fine. So there are all those kind of like little tips and little things to kind of be aware of as you're visiting these magical worlds. And so I thought that was just such an interesting kind of take to take on this book, is to have a magical realm, but that magic is slowly depleting. As I was diving into the book, I couldn't help but notice a few kind of gamer Easter eggs, like mentioning how you will be pushing your luck while diving into the jellyfish seas while harvesting gems. Are these a nod to a future game, perhaps?
Actually, no. Probably not. The game mechanics, or the mechanics for the game designs that are in the works right now with Stonemaier Games are... I can't say much about them at this point, but I think it's probably just the gamer in me has picked up on those themes myself and those mechanics, and I happen to be a fan of those mechanics, but it's probably just lingo that carried on into my own vocabulary as I wrote these books. But you never know. You never know. There might be some push your luck mechanics that might find themselves into the games, but and of course I can't help but think that there's certainly a relationship between games in general and this world, since it's such an important part of my life. Perhaps games themselves might play a role in the stories. I'm not quite sure.
Because this world was my favorite. This world one of my favorites was the jellyfish world, where you literally dive into a sea of jellyfish, and as they're going by, they're like dropping gems, and so you can go down and like harvest the gems from them. Stonemaier Games, if you're not already making this, please make it. I want a jellyfish game where I can dive into the ocean and collect jellyfish gems with like push your luck in it. Like, please, I want it so bad. Now, in my opinion, one of the more unique experiences described in this book is located in Endhaven, where patrons can partake of fiery cuisine that contains soul-burned pepper, a pepper that is so hot that you literally burst into flames after consuming it. What was the inspiration behind this idea specifically?
I can't remember the origins of this specific concept. I was working on these wonders starting 4 or 5 years ago, and this is one of the very first ones I created. It is still definitely one of my favorites. So I'm trying to remember where that original concept came from. What I can say is the Soulburn Pepper and the Phoenix Heart Cafe really captured the general mood that I'm wanting to get with this world, which is this idea of these magical places being an adventure in themselves. Joining a grand tour with the Smoking Bones Travel Company is not something you do casually. It's really for the adventure seekers, the people who are looking for something new and exciting in their lives, flirting a little bit with danger, and that's definitely what the Phoenix Heart Cafe is. The concept that you might, catch on fire, but by doing that for, while you're eating your sandwich, you're adding months or years to your life was a concept that I always really enjoyed. And tying that to Red Jones, who knows what adventures he's had that has caused him to become such a big fan of the Phoenix Heart Cafe. I'm not quite sure, but it definitely captures the mood that I want people to feel in the magical places as a whole.
I think part of the reason why this book resonated with me so much is I love traveling. Like, apart from board games, yes, I love my board games, but I love traveling. And so, like, if I had the opportunity to visit that cafe and, like, have a sandwich with the possibility, like, you have a sandwich with the possibility of catching on fire, I think I would do it. I had to ask Andrew this one. If you could experience one adventure in this book, what one would it be and why?
I think it would have to be Madame Marin's Tom Tom Festival. This is a fantastic event hosted by a character that I modeled after my wife, which actually has a really interesting, impactful history to me. I actually dreamt about the Tom Tom Festival, and I woke up and I literally woke up and wrote the entire dream down, and basically the concept was just discovering, in my dream I just discovered this outdoor festival that was just celebrating chocolate, and the Tom Tom fruit and the Tom Tom seed, which makes is the ingredient for all of these things in this festival. Is very much chocolate, but with magic. So the idea of finding, or being able to attend this grand festival featuring all of this food was just something I thought was just a really neat thing, and truly came from a dream. I don't know why I dream about chocolate maybe so much, but there's something into that. But the visuals that were in my mind, the visuals I dreamed about made for a really easy magical place, and so I turned that into a wonder, and I think for myself personally that would be probably my favorite thing. Tom Tom itself, Tom Tom fruit and the Tom Tom seed is a bit explosive. Not only is the Tom Tom Festival very tasty, but it also provides for a pretty bombastic experience.
I have definitely dreamt about chocolate a handful of times too, so that tracks for me. Me and my mom have like the biggest sweet tooth ever. So we would probably be joining you, Andrew. This entire world that Andrew has created is a pretty big, pretty expansive world. And this book actually just focuses on a really tiny little part of it. And that part is called Brandomir. And so after reading all about Brandomir, I am so anxious to hear and experience the other lands that are in this world. So what land would be your personal favorite, Andrew? And can you share any details about it?
Each of the lands definitely have their own history and their own culture. There are going to be characters that you will be playing in the games, and each of them come from various lands in the Northlands. That is for sure. Probably the most that has been developed is the land of the Withermark, which is, as I mentioned, was not a great kingdom, or well, I should say it was a great kingdom, but went in a wrong direction and became a danger to the rest of the Northlands, but it itself is a beautiful place, and so this is one that I will feature prominently in the stories in the Smoking Bones saga that I am currently creating. It's actually based off of the British Isles. Each of the lands in the Northlands is really kind of reminiscent of different parts of Northern Europe, which I have a family attachment to and some personal history with. The Withermark itself is based off of the British Isles, where I spent some time when I was younger. When I think of the Withermark, I think about those areas and the environments that you find there. So that's one that I look forward to exploring a little bit more. I don't know if that'll be the next travel guide, but we'll definitely be hearing more about the Withermark a great deal as the stories develop in this world, for sure.
I honestly cannot wait. I am so excited to see what the other lands kind of have to offer, and I'm really excited to see how the games from Stonemaier are able to take these lands and actually turn them into board games. Now, Andrew has actually not been working on this project alone. While yes, he's been having these ideas for a long time and has kind of been working on this world building and everything for the past 10 years, he actually enlisted the help of his son working on the writing in regards to this book. I wanted to ask Andrew how it was to be able to work with his son on a project.
That was a really great experience. My son has been developing his writing talents for several years now and has his own fan base and group of people that follow his work. And I've tried to be a support to him as much as I can from my side of things. And it's been exciting to see him create and share with the world and see people be excited about the things that he creates. And so I like to write. I think I'm an okay writer, but I happen to be just like the slowest writer in the world. And in order to get this travel guide completed, I just needed to get the help of somebody else, and my son was a perfect person to work with. We enjoyed working together. It was, it had its own challenges. There were times where we had different ideas and different ways of carrying out the vision for these wonders, but we worked together, and ultimately it's something that we're both very, very proud of.
I love that father and son were able to come together and work on this project with each other. Now, to kind of round out this Q&A, I had one final question for Andrew, and that was, what can fans look forward to in regards to the future of this series of books?
It's really hard to separate the Smoking Bones into any one particular section. So there is this travel guide, which I have already created and I'm getting ready for Kickstarter and launching very soon right now. And that, just sort of tells this side story of these magical places, these individual magical places, but it's really an introduction to a much bigger narrative experience that will be coming out later, which is the Smoking Bones Saga. That's going to be a series of books that tell the story of Red Jones and how he investigates these disappearing wonders and how he resolves that problem and the adventures he has along the way. In addition to that is a series of games, board games that are in development right now, that are being published by Stonemaier Games. What I'm really excited about is how these books and games will interact. We are telling a big story, and while that story is independent and primarily told through the books, when you play the games along with the stories, they add to the big narrative as a whole. And that is perhaps, I would say, the true fullest experience of telling of experiencing this story is when you take book one and then you play game one and so on and so on. So it's a really ambitious and challenging but extremely exciting thing that I hope that people will grab the travel guide to get a taste and an introduction, and then will be attractive enough to others that they will be ready for when Stonemaier Games releases their games and I release through Wits and my books, which will be very much tied together.
This honestly doesn't happen very often, having a book series that is released and then to have a game that is released based off of those books. And based on my understanding is that they're kind of working a little bit with each other in regards to the publishment and development of the books and also the publishment and development of the games. And so to kind of have that cohesive relationship, it's not like there was a book that was released ages ago that now somebody wants to create a board game around. This is something where the board game is being designed and developed around and during the same time that the book is, and they're kind of bouncing off of each other. Love that idea. I am so interested to see how this book series kind of grows and develops, but then I'm also so excited to see how the games end up taking this core story and turning it into a board game, and the mechanisms and everything that they'll use. I'm so intrigued and anxiously looking forward to both of these releases.
Thanks, Carly. I really appreciate your support and giving me the chance to talk a little bit about the Smoking Bones, which is live today.
I will make sure to have all of the links and information for this project in the description below. So make sure you hit those links, head over to their Kickstarter launch page, and be able to kind of see all the information for this project. I really hope you enjoyed this Q&A today with Andrew Bosley. Andrew, thank you so much for reaching out to me and entrusting me with this content. Hopefully I do you justice. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, it means so much if you could do that. It really helps support me in everything that we're doing over here. But until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later.